Hello, this is the RPG Crawler, and welcome to another Indie Game Friday, where each week I take a look at a different independent computer role-playing game. This week I'm taking a look at an RPG/team management/real-time with pause sort of game, Tower of Time. Developed and published by Event Horizon, it was released back in April of 2018. Tower of Time is a bit of an odd one to place. It features a startlingly detailed, ruined tower in a post-magical apocalypse world. Combat can be either real-time with pause or real-time with slow-motion toggle, and manages to combine elements reminiscent of both tower defense and real-time tactical games, as well as some elements of MMORPG-style battles. In terms of plot, the game starts with you as a child in a little village, scraping together a living in a hostile world after some sort of magical apocalypse has set it all to ruin. You come across a magical tower, where a mysterious entity tells you to return once you've built up your skills. Many years later, now a successful commander in a crumbling kingdom, you return to the tower, where you find that it gives you the power to see through your companion's eyes. And so you send your champions forth into the tower to explore it and discover where it came from, as well as what it can do. It develops much further than that, but that's a solid way to get you involved. In terms of gameplay, Tower of Time offers three main portions. There's an exploration phase, a combat phase, and town management. These are gradually unlocked as the intro progresses. During exploration, you control a team of up to 4 of your roster of champions, which can eventually include all 7 characters, and you are placed on a map of the level where you may wander around, gathering gold and other resources, uncovering chests and other loot, interacting with objects and characters, and finding enemies to face. When in exploration mode, the screen is dominated by a representation of your view of your surroundings. Along the top, there's icons representing your resources, gold and 3 different crystal types. Then there's the various menu icons. Most of these may also be accessed in the town management mode. The library allows you to review active quests, a bestiary of monsters that you encountered, elements of the story that you have uncovered, and so forth. Next is the map. This shows a map of the level that you've explored, complete with a key, as well as the total number of objects and quests that you can find on the level. You may mouse over points of interest to get a brief label showing what they are. At any time, you can return to the entrance of the level as well, which can be useful since there are teleport spheres that can make travel within a level fairly easy. The character screen icon follows, where you can review your characters. The character selection is on the left, and each character sheet has 4 tabs. The Character tab shows the selected character's portrait, their name, their class, a brief biography, then their main attributes: might, speed, mastery, and life. Might increases damage of attacks, and at higher levels increases armor and magical penetration. Speed increases the character's attack speed, and at higher levels decreases the cooldown of skills. Mastery affects skills, increasing their power the higher it goes, and at higher levels it actually increases magic regeneration during combat. Finally, there's life, which increases maximum health, and at higher level increases elemental resistances. When you reach each new level, you may get some points to distribute amongst these attributes, and at any time you can pay purple crystals to retrain them. Beneath this are the character's active skills, which may be changed as you unlock more of them. On the right-hand page of the Character tab is the overall level, the accrued health and mana, and then their DPS with their current weapon, their damage and attack bonus. Then there's the skill power bonus, the mana regeneration, and a percent that their skill cooldown has risen to. Below this is their total armor penetration, which helps them get through armor, magic penetration, crit chance, hit point bonus, health regeneration, and movement speed. Finally, there's the armor rating and their elemental resistances to fire, earth, water, air, and void. The next tab is the Inventory tab, where you can adjust your character's equipment. Characters' choices in weapons and armor is limited by their class, but they can equip a helm, gloves, amulet, chest armor, leg armor, boots, up to 2 rings, something in their main hand, and something in their offhand. Besides this are hotkeys for crafting, enchanting, and the item forge, which are unlocked as you uncover things in the dungeon. Below this is your party's collection of inventory, while the right-hand page just offers your stats again, so that you can see how they're adjusted when you equip various gear. There's also a dismantle button, which lets you dismantle unneeded gear into various crystals for crafting. Since you can't sell gear, this is actually your only option for getting rid of it besides dropping it, and you can keep forging new gear to try for random upgrades, so it's actually a pretty decent system of recycling. The next tab is the skill tree. Each character can train a number of skills over their lifetime, and they receive some upgrade points at each level. On the left-hand side is your selected skill and some descriptions of what it does. The skills levels are placed one above the other, and you can specialize in one or two specializations for each skill, with the specialization upgrading in a parallel path to the skill itself. On the right side page is a list of all the skills that the character can learn, as well as their upgrades. These are laid out in a table according to what level you can qualify to learn them from 1 to 15. At any time, you can reset all the skills. Finally, there's the alignment tab. It's really more of a reputation tab, with each of your potential companions graphed out on the alignment table, ranking them from -10 to +10. Actions that you take in the storyline will modify the character's various attitudes towards you, and when you reach certain totals, each character may grant a boost to the stats for your entire party. Back on the main exploration screen, the last of the middle top buttons allows you to return to the city at any point. Finally, there's an Options tab at the upper right that opens up the pause menu where you can save and load the game, exit the game, change the game settings, and so forth. While you're exploring the area, you'll come across various random piles of gold glittering on the ground, which can be picked up for resources. There's chests that can contain objects which may have random items in them. There's a number of objects in the background which you can click on for lore as well. Some objects allow for interactions, for instance fountains that change your stats for better or for worse, doors, or even crystals that can be picked up out of the earth. Some NPCs linger about the tower as well and may offer up help or choices. There's also the occasional teleporter, which will allow you to teleport to any other teleporter on the same level. Enemy groups are also displayed on the map and usually stay in place, only moving when you're near enough for them to try to engage you. In this way, you're usually aware of where encounters are, unless of course it's an ambush, in which case the enemies are hidden. When you encounter an enemy group, then you may enter the battle part of the game. Encountering an enemy group pops up an information block first, which lets you decide if the battle is actually worth pursuing. Here you have various types of enemies, with their various stats laid out, such as damage, armor, health, resistances, and skills. Clicking on the Details button shows additional information, such as their element type, any armor and magic penetration that they may have, movement speed, and descriptions of what their skills do. You can choose to fight, and unless it's an ambush, you can also choose to change your active party members or withdraw. If you choose to fight, you enter the combat arena. You are given a chance to arrange your characters within a limited range in the center of the arena. At the top, there are any relevant effects that the party may have, a bar showing how many enemies are defeated so far, and then 3 icons allowing you to restart the battle, to forfeit and load a saved game, and of course, the options screen. At the bottom of the screen are the icons of each individual character, showing their portrait, what mode they are in, stand your ground or approach the enemies, their current and maximum health and mana, and their regeneration of each. You can select any of them to move them by clicking on the map. The selected character's active skills are shown in the lower right-hand corner, and this skill will indicate if it's on cooldown or be grayed out if there's not enough mana to execute it. Finally, there is a pause icon in case you are using a mouse only rather than mouse and keyboard. Combat is in real time, although you can pause it at any time. The default mode doesn't actually pause the game, but rather puts it into a super slow motion so that you can still see the fight going on while you are giving plenty of time to move around and use skills. This can be toggled to a proper full pause in the menu. Each selected character will show the range of their attack in a white circle, and they will automatically engage enemies that enter into that circle. If they are not in stand your ground mode, they will actually move toward the enemy until they're within range. Executing a skill will cost mana, put the skill on cooldown, and usually allow you to target it if it has that sort of capability. Most combats are oddly tower defense-like, in that enemies will spawn in and approach in waves, often from multiple points of entry. You basically have to survive the enemies until you've defeated all 100% of them. Bosses, on the other hand, are different, in that you only have to defeat the boss to win the combat. During a fight, enemies will approach the character that they have the highest threat on, and the threat mechanic is handled as it might be in an MMO. Each individual enemy has its own threat list. When they enter into their own auto-attack ranges, they'll start attacking their target. Occasionally an enemy will use a skill. You'll get a warning of a highlighted red area most of the time, which will indicate where the skill is being targeted. So again, much like an MMO-style combat, just avoid standing in the highlighted areas if at all possible. Once you've defeated all the waves of enemies, you're given the combat summary screen. This allows you to reveal the stats on how much damage and healing was done by each character and ally, and you can even break down into various damage types the types of damage that was done. You are also given whatever whatever items that your victory earned you, usually material to craft things, gold, as well as some items to equip. Characters don't gain levels by combat experience, but rather through the town menu. Once you've progressed a bit in the game, you're allowed to develop your town, the last such mode in the game. The town is where you go between major story quests, and you can return to it at any time. Some of these buildings simply offer access to what you already have through the character screens. The keep, for instance, lets you manage the character's skills and inventory, while the library lets you look through quests, bestiary entries, and replay cutscenes. The barracks is where you train your champions. Rather than earning experience, you must pay money to level a champion up to the next level, and you may only raise them to a level for which you have upgraded the appropriate support buildings. Support buildings, like the Mage Tower or the Armory, are aligned with particular champions, and are unlocked when these champions are added to your party. Each one is aligned with a few of the 7 companions, and may also offer a secondary effect. For instance, the Armory allows you to use the Item Forge, while the Mage Tower allows you to use the enchantment screen. Upgrading a particular support building raises the level cap for its associated heroes and costs gold and a blueprint. These are limited resources, so you have to be strategic based on which heroes you wish to favor and how high you've already leveled them up. Finally, there's the item crafting blacksmith. This allows you to make and enhance items. The craft screen allows you to create weapons and armor associated with a particular champion. You can select the type, and then the material, and then the power. High-end materials cost more and give you better base stats, while rarer powers also cost more and grants more powerful magic. Then you may select one of 3 options, which gives you a different type of that particular weapon or armor associated with a particular type of element, and each costs a different amount of crystals. This generates a randomized item with a completely arbitrary ability, so basically it's the luck of the draw. The enchant screen lets you select various enchantment types to add to a particular object. Transmutation lets you switch crafting crystals between types, while the Item Forge allows you to upgrade an existing item. These are unlocked as you enter further into the tower and may offer a fair degree of item upgrades. Itemization is similar to the classic roguelike/Diablo method, where items may have a prefix and a suffix, denoting various qualities or abilities. They may also have additional sockets to hold enchantments in, and rare items hold more of those. Since enemies may have different elemental resistances, it can be beneficial to keep a few backup weapons before engaging certain types of enemies just in case. Switching to a fire-branded weapon, for instance, before a fight where the most dangerous creature has a penalty to fire resistance, can make all of the difference in the world. At any time, you can select the tower to enter the tower once more. This gives you the option of going to a place you're unlocked or undergoing challenge fights. The deeper you go, the more challenge fights you unlock. So that about covers the gameplay. What about the game's presentation and writing? To be honest, it's outstanding on all accounts. The tower levels are wonderfully detailed and have a rich scattering of lore throughout them, while the music is either calming or foreboding depending on the scene. The voice acting is decent, and the writing is actually pretty rich. It honestly feels as well developed a world as any RPG world that I've played in, including some from much larger and longer-lived series. This does come at a bit of a cost, as it slows the pace of the game a bit if you want to explore the lore and uncover everything, so if you're into that sort of detail, it can take a little bit to get into. The combat is interesting. I'm not going to say challenging, even though I had a little bit of difficulty from time to time, but rather it's more like a puzzle. From the rank and file sort of encounters, it's almost like some sort of semi-tower defense game where your characters are set up and complement each other's attacks and abilities to stop onward marching enemies. Although in this case the characters are all quite mobile, so it's not quite tower defense. You can adjust your position to handle different spawn points that enemies enter from. Against bosses and elites, however, the battles become much more dynamic, since the need to avoid special attacks, break line of sight, and handle additional adds becomes the main focus of the battle. Once you've figured out what to do, it then becomes a matter of managing mana and skill cooldowns as well as total DPS, much like organizing a raid group in an MMORPG style. There are some nitpicks that I had. The scarce resources at the start of the game means that you can hamper yourself and limit your options sometimes, although it's not insurmountable. The fixed camera angle during exploration can become a little bit irritating as well. I kind of wanted to turn it around and look at things, and I just couldn't figure out how to do it. I don't think there is a way to do it. The way the game's various choices adjust your character's opinions of you makes for an interesting theory, although I didn't get to examine that in detail since it seemed that the choices that you make are somewhat limited until much later in the game. The itemization seems just as subject to RNG as any action hack-and-slash dungeon smasher, but with more limited options for actually collecting loot on any one run. This means that you do have to be a little bit wiser with what you keep and what you disassemble, and that in part hampers the new item upgrade systems that were put into place, at least in the beginning. Once you've gone through a bit of the game, 2 additional modes unlock, an RPG Lite and a permadeath mode that lets you focus more on the action rather than the lore, which is pretty okay, except that in my opinion the story and the lore of this game are actually well worth the ride. All in all, Tower of Time is one of those few indie games that isn't a budget price, but still feels worth every penny due to the absolute amount of polish, although of course if you can pick it up on sale, so much the better. It's not going to appeal to everyone, but it does borrow tried and true elements from a number of different genres of RPG, and then puts its own spin on them, and for once, this seems to work more often than it fails. Often games try to do that and fail at it. I honestly like the way this game does that overall, although I just can't pick one subgenre that it'll appeal to most like I usually do with indie games. I feel like I should have tried this game out when it was a bit newer, as with so many other things of late, but hey, at least I'm getting to them. At any rate, I'm going to wrap it up here. As always, I will leave a link in the somewhere below. This has been the RPG Crawler with Indie Game Friday Tower of Time. If you like what you've seen, remember to leave a like, comment if you got any feedback, and subscribe for more RPG content, both tabletop and computer. Until next time, take care and goodbye. And if you're still watching this far, I'd like to take a moment to thank those who have supported this channel via Patreon or direct donations throughout the years, without which this channel could not have lasted as long as it has. For those who are feeling particularly generous, you can still support my work through Patreon and now through Subscribestar as well, through the links in the description below.